It is another week. Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly Navel-Gazing, where I talk about all the books I read last week and all the books I plan to read this week and all the videos I made last week and all the videos I plan to make this week. Sort of. And then we slow down and I don't rant as madly as I usually do, hopefully. We will see. Anyway, that's what we're doing today, and let's start with all the books that I did read last week, because I did read books. It wasn't that great. In fact, I did read Speculative Whiteness by Jordan S. Carroll, which is a non-fiction academic text on exactly what it says, science fiction and the alt-right. Seems like a timely read, doesn't it? So yeah, I did that, and then I did finally read Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, and I think I mentioned both of those in my last week's update already, but, you know, I finished them on Tuesday or whatever, so that's something I read. And then I did read Wizard of the Pigeons by Megan Lindholm, which was really, really good. Not a big surprise there, I guess, but certainly something I really enjoyed. And then I did read Blindside by Peter Watts, which is sci-fi with vampires and other stuff. It's really cool. It's a bit of a classic or modern classic or upcoming classic, at least in certain areas of the world. And I really enjoyed it. It's a really good book. I highly recommend you read it. Just like I recommend reading Wizard of the Pigeons as well, and Death of the Author goes without saying at this point, right? So I read all of those, and then I did read Words Are My Matter by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is a collection of non-fiction, some essays, some talks, some book reviews, stuff like that, from the year 2000 to the year 2016, so her last years of doing all the Le Guin things that Ursula Le Guin did all her life, and that's a really good book. There's interesting stuff in there on what it means to be a writer, on, you know, the question whether science fiction is literature or not, on all kinds of stuff. It's just an entertaining sort of collection of nonfiction stuff, and I really enjoyed it for that. So that was worthwhile. And then I did start reading Red Plenty by Frances Spufford, and I finished it a while ago, this morning, in fact. So Red Plenty by Frances Spufford is a really weird book. It's sort of half non-fiction, half historical fiction kind of thing about the 1950s and 1960s in the Soviet Union, about mostly the Nikita Khrushchev era, after Stalinism, before Brezhnev took over, before things turned into the kind of Soviet Union that we know, but that small era where experiments, social experiments, economic experiments and so forth flourished, and where, well, the idea of actually becoming a very successful economy was on the table, and the question of what went wrong there. So a really interesting book. And it is sort of split into non-fiction explanation, kind of introductions, and then each of these parts that has like a non-fiction introduction is then followed by a set of vignette short stories. Sometimes they are kind of connected. They all have recurring characters in them, sort of, that explore on a more human level sort of like what went on at that time, looking at, the human aspect of that. It's a really interesting concept. It works really well. It's a really good book. You should read it. That's what I read last week. And then this morning, I started The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, which I was given as a present, and I'm very, very thankful for that. So thank you very, very much. So that's the first part. What do I plan to read this week, then, is, I guess, the next big question. And, I'm going to finish The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi as the next step in my ongoing pirate thing. After that, I will read If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, or the other way around, by Italo Calvino. That's something I've wanted to read for a while. I'm very excited. It's going to happen this week. Beyond that, I have no idea. I think technically the audiobook for The Innkeeper's Song by Peter S. Beagle is supposed to finally come out on the 30th of January, so on Thursday. But since that has been pushed back again and again and again since last September, I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. I'm going to read it or listen to it whenever it comes out, but until then I am not making any promises because, of all of that like getting pushed back again and again. So that's something that if it comes up, I will obviously listen to it because I've been waiting for it. I pre-ordered it last year in July or something, so I've been waiting for this one for a long time. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment with reading. I'm sure other stuff will suggest itself. There's obviously other pirate books. There's A Scar by China Miéville. There is The Revenger books by Alistair Reynolds. I'm sure I can come up with something else if I feel like it. So that's something that may or may not happen. But beyond that, I'm currently sort of trying to figure out what to read after all the stuff that I've read so far. There is the first part of Ronald Hutton's Oliver Cromwell biography, The Making of Oliver Cromwell, which is maybe something I want to read now, since part 2 is coming out in February in audio. I mean, the print book came out last year, so yeah, that might be something. And beyond that, who knows? If something comes up, I will read it. If I have a spontaneous inspiration, I will obviously follow that specific direction. We will find out in the coming days. If you have suggestions, you can obviously always tell me in the comments, and then I'll just ignore that. Usually, and sometimes I will immediately jump to it. There's just like no rhyme or reason to the way I pick books that I want to read. So let's talk about books, videos. I did make one. The video for On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers is finally up. It took like 3.5 attempts at recording this video, because of reasons, but it's finally out. I uploaded it yesterday. I found a way to record it yesterday that led to a result with which I'm, if not happy, then at least not unhappy enough to try another time. And yeah, let's see if anyone is interested in it, or how many people are actually interested in talking about a pirate book that is something like 28 years old by now. Holy shit. Time flies, doesn't it? And no, not 28, like 38. Holy fucking cow. Time flies. So yeah, that's certainly something that I put out, and that's the one video I made. We did our live stream on Saturday, and I enjoyed it. I had fun. I hope those of you who made it also had fun. I think as live streams go, it was one of the longer ones, almost 4 hours, but yeah. So thanks everyone for showing up for that. I do really enjoy those live streams. I'll try to hopefully have like a guest for the next one. Wouldn't that be nice? The usual thing, if you feel like you want to be a guest on one of those live streams as a booktuber, hit me up. If you have suggestions for people to ask, let me know in the comments, and we'll see what is possible or is not possible until, well, the end of February, I guess. And that's that. I did the live sprints in the morning, the breakfast sprints, and I hung out with Britton on his channel, Britton and Alicia, on Britton's channel last night, and that was also fun. I really enjoyed that as well, so that's cool, but no actual recorded videos beyond the one for the pirate stuff. So, will there be videos this week? And if so, which ones? Well, I'm glad you asked. There will be a video for Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. I will hopefully start recording it tonight, because I am worried that it may be the kind of book that requires me having several runs at the actual book, because it's just so incredibly much, and I want to get it right. So we'll see how long that takes. But if I record it tonight, it'll be up tomorrow. If it'll, otherwise Wednesday, whatever. So there will be a video for Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, and I'm very excited for that one. After that, well, I still look like this, so I guess we'll get more pirate videos, by which I mean a video for The Pirates by George MacDonald Fraser, which allows me to, expand. And then after that, of course, a video for The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi, and so forth in the pirate thing. But I don't know how long it'll take to record those, because, I have to record them out on the balcony, and that means I have to sort of make sure it's not raining, make sure there's no, big construction noise, no, neighbors having, last parties or arguments or whatever next door that it's super loud. So I'm somewhat limited in when I can record those, and that means other stuff. Maybe I'll talk about Speculative Whiteness by Jordan S. Carell, or maybe I'll talk about Wizard of the Pigeons by Megan Lindholm, which really good book, worth talking about. I don't necessarily think I will be talking about Blind Sight by Peter Watts just yet. I might do that once I've read the follow-up, so to speak, which is the sequel, which is Echopraxia. just so I know what's going on in the entire series. We'll see. That's sort of like the vague plan there. But, there's always stuff coming up that I might feel compelled to talk about. That's just like the books that I'm currently reading where I'm like, hey, maybe one of them is worth talking about. We will see what happens in that regard. Maybe I'll talk about Red Plenty some more. I think it's a really good book. I think it's worthwhile doing that, maybe. We'll find out. And that I think is just like the main sort of like issue that I'm currently struggling with, the world being the kind of world it is at the moment. Certainly making it not necessarily easier to do booktube or anything else really, right? Like ever since the 20th, like last Monday, the inauguration of Donald Trump, things have gone insane in a lot of ways, and politics in Germany have not necessarily been less insane. They're incredibly depressing and frustrating, what with, us having an election in 3 weeks. 3 and a bit weeks, I think. The 23rd is, I think, the day. But I'm not quite sure because, calendars and stuff. But yeah, so, and people like Elon Musk obviously supporting our far-right party and all of that. It's very difficult to not become even more overtly political than I already am. And that's certainly something that I'm struggling with because it means, whenever I switch on a computer, whatever I'm looking for, whether it's book-related or anything else, there will be someone talking about the newest insanity happening in the world somewhere. It's not exactly, a big surprise that I have, that my social media network probably skews somewhat to the progressive, towards the queer, towards, people with all kinds of cultural backgrounds and so forth, which are currently all people that are often under attack by, well, government institutions for one at this point, and all kinds of other places. So going through social media, even when it's situations where I'm not personally, directly, immediately impacted by what is going on at the moment, is still incredibly taxing in a lot of ways and doesn't necessarily make me less disposed to being, really angry about just about everything or depressed. And obviously that can lead you down to that, like, ideas like, why am I out here talking about books when the world is actively burning at the moment? And should I keep going? Is there stuff I can do? If there is, what can I do? Oh, that's certainly something that's weighing on my mind, that it's not getting away anytime soon. On the other hand, of course, it means that whenever I want to do anything of that sort, because it's a quite different sort of like territory, right? Like BookTube, besides, despite all of its flaws, BookTube is one place where someone like me has a chance to hang around, even though, there's all kinds of problems with that as well, right? Because BookTube doesn't care, like, on the level that I'm at, BookTube doesn't care about production values much, right? Not everyone, most people film on their phones. Some people don't even do any editing, like me, and so forth. So it's easy for me to do BookTube in the way that doing more polished forms of YouTube is not, because I can't edit as a blind person. It's very difficult to do proper video editing that, like, is up to any, larger standards, right? That's something I can't do. Sometimes I wish I would be able to, or sometimes I think about, like, maybe taking one video that I'm really, really, worried about or whatever, and having someone who's good at, like, video editing, is professional, has, experience in doing proper video editing, having them just, like, go over the raw material and just editing it without me giving, like, any further input, just to see what someone else would come up with that material, and see how that looks and how that performs compared to me just, like, uploading these raw, like, rants, basically. Just out of curiosity, because I am very, very conscious and insecure about the fact that I can't properly, can't judge how stuff looks when I look at, because I can't see the video result of this. I can't do proper editing. I'm very insecure about that. So that's certainly something that is in the back of my mind. And yes, doing rants about books is sort of where I'm confident that I can do that, because there's other people out there who do just the same amount or possibly even less work on their videos, and yeah, it does not necessarily stand out as particularly awkward in that regard, I would argue. So that's something. But, like, the further I move away from that larger sort of like BookTube-ish sphere, the more that sort of like insecurity kicks back in. And that's certainly something when it comes to, say, explicit politics, right? If I would make videos on, say, politics in Germany right now, the German election, why it's bad, all of that stuff, if I would do that, that would be a very different audience. First of all, most of you will probably just go like, I don't care about this shit, but why is he talking about party politics right now? What's that? I have no interest in that. That would be the first part. But people who are, looking for political content would probably also not be very happy with me, because it's not up to the standard of editing and video and sound quality and all of that stuff that they expect from political YouTubers. So I'm kind of stuck in this place where my deep sort of my drive is my need is there to talk about, to do something political, because clearly the world is getting worse in a lot of ways. It's fucked up in any kind of way. And you look out here and people are trying to change border policies to turn away migrants from the border. But in Germany, within Schengen, fuck you for doing that. It's insane. And this stuff is happening all around. No one's doing anything. It's incredibly frustrating to the nth degree. And I can't do much about it. And then I read books, and books that I personally really love in a lot of ways. And I love the fantastic, I love science fiction, I love literature. One thing that's really important to me, is books. And then I find stuff in there that is bad in books. And then I see other people just ignoring that because they've decided that clearly that doesn't matter, and negative political messages and so forth in books are something we can just ignore because we're reading for just the joy of the story or something. And that's when I get incredibly intense, because I'm like, sure, you can do that on your own, right? I read Robert E. Howard stories from time to time. I read Lovecraft stories from time to time, and those are not necessarily people whose politics I share by a long shot. And there's a lot of incredibly bad stuff in those books. I can do that, but if I'm on a public-facing platform, that comes with responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities, I would argue, is to point out the negative aspects even of books we love, and maybe also make sort of clearer statements on what is or what is not, morally wrong. Because this is not just party politics. This is clear ethics that we're talking about in a lot of ways. And it just drives me mad in a lot of ways. And the problem is, of course, the more I do that, and the more overtly political I get with my book reviews, the more I'm obviously pushed out of, or sort of not necessarily someone that is welcome within the booktube sphere. And I talked about this sort of musingly through during live sprints and so forth. But I feel the more things are escalating in the sphere of party politics on the one hand, but also just literal intrusions into women, into people's lives, into people's direct lives in a negative way, the harder it will be to maintain parts of BookTube as a sphere where we don't talk about politics. And that will lead to polarization, where those people who talk about books who are, say, on the more conservative side of things, and I'm trying to be very, very polite here, right? On the more conservative side of things, people who don't feel the direct pressure of choices made by governments and so forth right now, who will be certainly more willing to either publish their opinions, their more conservative opinions, because they feel that they have the right to, because the tone of a lot of discourse has shifted that way, or they will be willing to fight even harder for the right to not have politics, so-called politics, dragged into their nice escapist book or corner, because they are not yet personally touched, whereas everyone else would either just leave the place, because we are obviously if they are coming for you, you probably have better things to do than record booktube videos, or people will get more and more angry and more actively political, which will obviously have a huge impact on how booktube will develop in the next couple of months, to put it I guess in a couple of months we'll kind of know where things are going, right? And I don't know what to do about that. I just know that I'm incredibly frustrated. I have a lot of things that I want to say. I don't know in which way I could say them, where to go with that. It certainly does not make me a less intense person, I can tell you that. And that certainly will put off a lot of other people. Once again, probably some of you, of my viewers, will also be put off by me becoming more and more agitated about these things. And I don't know what to do about that. I mean, obviously, YouTube is constantly showing me, subscriber numbers going up and down, and every time they do, there is that small voice going Did I say something too extreme that pushed people off? Did I insult someone by, I don't know, calling out their favorite other booktuber, their favorite booktuber for getting something wrong or whatever? Did I hurt someone's feelings, to put it mildly, right? Because that's at the bottom of this in a lot of ways. Even for the facts don't care about your feelings crowd. A lot of times, if I say something negative about someone's favorite book or someone's favorite author or someone's favorite booktuber, no matter how well-funded my argument would be in that situation, it touches people on an emotional level. And the question is like, should I not do that? Should I do that and just accept that there will be a price of possibly being pushed further and further out of the sort of like sphere where I originally started as a booktuber, which is, epic fantasy, Malaz and Book of the Fallen, that kind of stuff. I don't know what to do about this, but it's certainly something that I have been, thinking about over the last week, what with, shit completely going insane in all kinds of ways. And, I don't know what to do about it, is my point here. I'm very much in this weird limbo stage, and if you have ideas, suggestions, comments, and so forth, I'm always willing to hear them, whether you want to send me that in like a private message or whatever, or in a comment. I totally get it. So it's not a really good place to be in right now for anyone, and I'm still certainly out here having it probably better than a lot of others, a lot of you. And I'll keep reading books, because books are one way of making the world make sense, including all the bad stuff that is happening. And I think that is certainly something I'll keep up. That may mean making more videos about nonfiction, about academic texts, about political books in a lot of ways, or overtly political books in a way that, say, talking about pirate books is not. Although I think with the two that I already did, both Treasure Island and, of course, On Stranger Tides, I have already shown that those are political as well. And you bet that, like, talking about the Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi and, of course, The Pirates by George MacDonald Fraser will also drag politics into it, because there is no politics anywhere, and that's unfortunate, but that's something I guess we need to accept before we can move forward in any way or form. Anyway, just some rambling thoughts. As I said, I'm not happy with myself at the moment. I'm not happy with the world, and I don't know how to fix it. I'll just keep going until something happens, something changes, and I figure out what to do next. If you have anything else you want to tell me, there's a comment section down below. If you want to, help this out, I don't know, give it a like, give it a like, give it a comment, subscribe if you feel like it, share it with a friend if you feel like it, share it with an enemy if you want to, if you really dislike what I'm saying. Might also certainly worth something to me, right? Do all of those things. There's a Patreon down there, and there's a channel membership thing. You can give me money if you really feel like it. I mean, the world is a fucked up place right now. If you'd rather, keep your money to yourself and make sure that you and other people that are really important to you are safe, or have a bit of a, some way of mitigating the damage that is currently done to just about everyone, that's very much more the priority. But if you feel like you can spare a little money, I have a huge dental operation coming up very soon, I hope. And I still need to figure out how to pay for that one. Anyway, that's something we'll talk about when we get there. Otherwise, it'll just be pirate videos until the end of times. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, thanks and cheers.